I happened to see an ad of someone giving away all their lawn equipment. They had posted them as free and sitting on the curb, and there was no way to know how old the ad was because they initially posted the ad as a for sale listing a couple of weeks ago, but apparently nobody wanted them. It was about 15 minutes away, so my chances of picking it up were uncertain at best, but I had to see if any of it was still available. You can probably guess what happened. What's up, everyone, and thank you for stopping by. Today's project is this Craftsman lawnmower, and the problem is that I don't know if it runs because I just got it. Now, I'm very hopeful that it will start and run because it looks to be in decent shape despite its age. Now, I'm going to try and repair this mower, however, it may not be the exact repair you need to make to yours. We'll explore other options later in the video. Now, we're only going to mention what these other options could be. We don't have enough time to look into them, but if you need more information about these options, you're welcome to ask as many questions as you need to. Now, I'll get to all the things they were giving away, but as you can see, this mower comes equipped with electric start. Now, the ad mentioned that the mower did work, but it just needed a new wiring harness for the key start to work the way it was supposed to. By the looks of this harness, they did a pretty good job diagnosing the problem because it's completely torn apart. Now, the first time I saw this harness, I wasn't sure what I was looking at and what went where. There's not a lot of information online about the harness, and it turns out that the best resources were eBay listings. Now, some of the listings showed enough of the harness to figure out where everything went, and then using common sense, I figured out the entire harness was there, but the wire loom had just been taken off so it could be tested. Before I start questioning their findings, I want to first figure out if the engine does indeed start and run, because if that turns out to be an exaggeration, well, we won't have to worry about whether the harness is bad or not. The first thing I want to check is the oil level and its condition. Now, when checking the oil, remove the dipstick and wipe it clean, and then reinstall it. So this is not good news. I don't see any oil on the end of the dipstick. If it was ran like this for a long time, the engine could be damaged beyond repair. I'm going to add some to the engine so it's safe to run. Once I know there's enough oil in the engine, I'll then check the gas tank to see if there's anything in it. So even though I don't see any gasoline in the tank, I can see that it's still wet, which typically means there's a small amount of gasoline in the lower part of the tank that you just can't see. Just to be sure there is enough, I'm going to give it a splash of gasoline, prime the carb, and then try starting it. So luckily it started and ran, and I have to admit, it sounds pretty good despite being low on oil. I can only guess that the low level must have happened pretty recently. Now that I know the engine does work, I'm going to take a closer look at the damage from the previous owner's diagnostic work, and it looks like I've got a lot of work ahead of me. In their efforts to try and figure out what the issue was, they removed the battery and the panel that covers it and didn't put them back on. It's not a huge issue, but it means I have to buy a new battery and then find a way to secure it. That means I have to do more work than I was expecting to. The next thing I'm going to do is look over the harness and try to figure out what each of the connectors is for. While I'm doing that, I'm going to tell you what all was being given away in the ad. They had two lawn mowers, both of them were Craftsman, and this was the better one. They were also giving away an edger, a blower, and a string trimmer. However, those were all corded electric, and all of those worked. So I finally figured out what all the connectors do, and luckily everything is there and nothing was removed or modified. They only took off the wire loom so they can inspect the wiring. Now, the previous owner seemed to be very knowledgeable because I noticed that even the interlock switch seems to be disturbed when they did their inspection. That's how thorough they were with their diagnostic. For those of you who aren't aware, the interlock is meant as a safety feature so you're not able to start the engine with the key while the engine brake is still engaged. I also noticed that this mower is extremely difficult to push, but it's not consistent, which is really strange. Before I go on, I want to take the wheels off, especially the front wheels, and see if there's something wrong with them. After taking off the wheel and looking at the backside where the drive engages with it, we can see the teeth on the outer edge. We can also see the teeth look to be damaged, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but the damaged part could interfere with the metal drive gear, which would explain why sometimes it would spin freely and other times would struggle to spin at all. The next thing I want to do is remove the other wheel and see if it has the same issue, and if it does, we'll have to come up with a solution for this problem. But as you can see, for some reason, its teeth are in much better condition, despite it having a lot more wear on the tire. Now, this type of self-propel system is not very complicated, so it doesn't have any sort of differential, meaning both wheels will spin at the same speed, so if one wheel has an issue, it'll affect both wheels. In this case, the right wheel is the one causing our problems, but unfortunately there's more to the problem than just worn teeth on the back of the wheels. There seems to be quite a lot of play in the brackets that hold the wheels. This amount of deflection could cause problems when it comes to sufficient contact between the teeth and the drive gears. Basically, the entire drive system is loose, and even replacing most of the self-propelled system, it'd work for a little while, but it would end up in the same situation in a couple of seasons. For right now, I'm going to lubricate what I can and replace the wheels. I don't know what my plans will be for this self-propel system, so we'll just use it until things get worse, and then we'll come up with a solution. For right now, it's still working, which is better than nothing. Now, the lube I'm using is lithium grease, and the reason I use it is because it's extremely convenient. As far as recommendations, just use whatever you have on hand. Now the rear wheels will be really easy because I'm just going to remove them, lube them, and then replace them. You don't need to remove the wheels to do this. You can just apply your lube in the space between the bolt and the wheel and the back side of the wheel, but you won't get a chance to inspect them for any problems like rust or excessive wear. We're pretty lucky because these seem to be in really good shape. Now that all the wheels have been lubricated, the mower should be just a little bit easier to push around the yard, which should make mowing the grass a little less tiring. Now I do want to go back to the interlock because I just noticed something strange. Now the switch could be bad, causing the electric start not to work. Now the normally open circuit is there, but the terminal has been removed, I assume to reduce production errors. If I check for continuity across the normally closed and common terminals, you can see I do have a reading across them, and if I move the lever for the switch, I lose that signal. So the switch seems to be working just fine, which means there shouldn't be a problem with the key start. Now the wires that connect to the switch are part of the circuit that connects to the starter, so it makes sense that the switch needs to be closed for the starter to work. We need to find out how the lever interacts with the brake system and see if it's working like it should, but it looks as though the switch has been moved away from where it's supposed to be so it doesn't make contact with the brake lever. That means the circuit is always closed and the key start should work whenever it wants to. More than likely the previous owner made this change as part of their diagnostic. There's one other problem. The lower brake lever isn't moving as far as it should, so if I close the brake lever on the handle, you can see how much it moves down here, and even though it's just enough to allow the ignition system to work, it's not enough to make contact with the switch. Now if I squeeze the lever while the brake handle is also squeezed, you can see just how much further this lever is able to move. That would mean there's also a problem with the cable between here and the brake handle, and it needs to be replaced. Now we won't be focusing on the harness in this video as it would need its own entire video, so for right now I'm just going to put a wire loom on it to just tidy things up. So the reason I'm separating the videos is that I need to consider if this is even worth trying to fix. Since the battery and its cover are missing, this went from a diagnostic video to these are the things I need to buy video, which would include a budget. Now here's the biggest issue. Most people don't seem to care about having a key start on their mower, which I find kind of strange. Now, if I had an issue with my shoulder or my elbow, I'd pay the extra money for electric start on my mower, but most people just think it's a luxury and aren't willing to pay for it or even deal with it. Not only does it cost more than the one without key start, but it's also heavier and the battery adds another level of maintenance which most people don't want to deal with. So for me, it may not be worth fixing. I'll just be putting money into something that doesn't add any value to the mower, so why even bother trying to get it to work? The most I'm willing to do is put some wire loom on the loose wires to tidy it up. So another option as to why the key start might not be working is that the starter might not be working like it's supposed to. Now some people leave their mowers out in their yards uncovered and exposed to the elements. Now while this might not kill the mower, it could affect the starter, causing it to spin slower or not at all. So my question is, do you think it's worth trying to get the electric start working again on this mower, or am I wasting my time with it? I mean, we already know it starts and runs, and even though the self-propel has some small issues, it still works. Should I keep going or should I leave it alone? Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate your time here. Please feel free to ask me any questions, and I hope to see you in the next video.